In this video, I share why vulnerability is crucial to creating masculine-feminine polarity that is so important to creating intense sexual attraction. So both men and women need to understand these concepts in order to increase the closeness and pleasure in dating and in committed relationships. I'm going to share how revealing my raw judgments and criticisms, quote unquote, during the very early stages of dating Steve created the most epic multi-dimensional intimacy. Hi, I'm Emily Liu. I help you climax in love with extraordinary intimacy through confidently and vulnerably sharing all parts of who you are using the internal family systems parts framework. I'm the author of CLIMAX, Why Great Leaders Need Love Affairs. Through a fictional story, this book shows you that when the raw truths are hidden, self-sabotage and living a life of quiet desperation can ensue. The link to buy the book is below in the description box. If you're interested in working on yourself, I do offer one-on-one coaching, or you can sign up for my signature Climax in Love online course. Please consider subscribing so that you don't miss out on the psychology of love content that I share weekly. I walk my talk and I'm on a journey just like you to try to have and live the most awe-inspiring and deeply intimate love life. At the end of the video, you're gonna have the 3 most important questions you could ask yourself so that you can look at whether or not you're ready to jump into radical honesty and vulnerability. And I'm going to share the magical phrase to share when someone rejects your vulnerability and can't hold space for your truth. So let's get on to the juicy content. In my dating situation with quote unquote Steve, I've been in full rawness and vulnerability. And he, the sovereign warrior that he is, has worked on himself for years and was able to hold space for everything I'm thinking and feeling, including my judgments and criticisms about him. This is the kind of thoughts and feelings that you would call a friend to nitpick about after a date. But I didn't need to call my friends. I shared with him about what I would say to a close friend about my perceived concerns. You can listen to the raw voice note that I left Steve early on in our dating journey that propelled us down the high-level intimacy pretty quickly. It's in the last video on sexual attraction, psychology, and lifelong desire that I shared this voice note. The link is in the cards. So Steve and I had a lot in common. And as with all budding relationships, many of us look to see how many boxes a potential mate checks off. He met like 18 out of the 20 check boxes. And so it was pretty super amazing. I had to talk to Steve about 2 most important things that weren't checked off. And since we were already so connected, I had to bring them up, even though I was afraid to bring these concerns up. I voiced my concerns to Steve from my heart, using that there's a part of me, there's a voice inside of me language that is concerned with XYZ. I let him know that I'm afraid to share it. And he let me know he wanted to hear it. Because of the years of internal family systems therapy that he's been on, he has gotten to know his vulnerable parts. And that he knew that whatever judgments and criticisms I had towards him were coming from my fears. As I shared the radical truth, he didn't get mad or triggered. He held space. So our dynamic was in masculine-feminine polarization in action. I was deeply in my feminine side, sharing not only from my heart, but just at the really raw feelings. And he was on his masculine side, holding the consciousness. That is the frame and the energy where I felt like I've got you, Emily. As I shared my concerns, Steve didn't need to defend himself. That I'm judging him. He just basically said, I'm here to hold you in your thoughts and your emotions and your concerns. All of your parts are welcome. He just knew that all of my feelings were coming from fear and that he wanted to witness what these fears were about. And he let me know that he heard me and that he wants to make me happy and that he's inspired to be a better man. So Steve's ability to hold space was really extraordinary. The fact that I didn't need to say to a girlfriend what I was concerned about really told me that this guy can hold my sacred raw truth. And this increased my trust and respect for this man. I felt really safe to be all out who I am and the full rainbow of goddess of some of my crazy parts, and to feel psychologically and emotionally safe to share all that I am. And I knew that he was also capable of providing the love and the space for all my wounded and tender parts. After I shared my vulnerable truth, a couple of days later, Steve had shared his vulnerable truth and the childhood wounded parts that made him into the extraordinary human being that he is. And so when he did that, I got into my masculine side and I held consciousness and space for his sharing of his vulnerabilities. So as you can see, the vulnerability on both the man and the woman's part is so necessary for masculine-feminine polarization. And this is what creates the sexual attraction and tension that is necessary in order for passion to be alive for the length of the relationship. The sexual attraction magnet gets activated when the woman is in her cracked open feminine. I shared in the last video how Steve was turned off by the other woman he was dating at the same time as when he and I first met. The reason why he was turned off was because she was in her masculine energy. Her masculine energy repelled and made him feel like he had to defend himself and out-masculine her. They were on the same side of the masculine magnet, and that's why he wasn't attracted to her. In contrast, I was in my feminine core of my cracked open heart with sharing my emotions. Brené Brown, who is the world's most famous shame and vulnerability researcher and teacher, has famously said, "If you show me a woman who can sit with a man in real vulnerability, in deep fear, and be with him in it, I will show you a woman who, A, has done her work, and B, does not derive her power from that man. And if you show me a man who can sit with a woman in deep struggle and vulnerability and not try to fix it, but just hear her and be with her and hold space for it, I'll show you a guy who's done his work and a man who doesn't derive his power from controlling or fixing anything." So you see how powerful a man is when he doesn't have to fix whatever it is that a woman is sharing. Dr. Brené Brown's quote really described why Steve and I were able to hold space for each other. And because Steve and I are immersed in the internal family systems model developed by Dr. Richard Schwartz, I as a teacher of this model, and Steve as a client with his wonderful IFS therapist, which he has seen weekly for a number of years, we were and are able to go down the rabbit hole that few couples ever go down. So radical honesty and transparency and vulnerability and accepting all parts of a partner are the magical ingredients for intimacy and growth and lifelong passion and great sex. If you want to learn more about how to gain the ability to speak for parts and how it plays a huge role in building multidimensional intimacy, I invite you to read my CLIMAX book. This is going to show you how to do that. And because Steve and I shared our secrets and deepest truth so early in the dating process, we built so much safety and intimacy from the get-go. I mean, we built it beyond our wildest imagination. And we both said that we have never experienced this kind of intimacy before, where this is something that most couples yearn for and don't even know how to establish the safety to reveal all parts of who they are. And because we know how to evoke masculine-feminine polarity, this caused us to want each other even more. So the crux of the work I do is to help couples to save their relationships is about doing the healing work of their respective wounded inner child parts that get activated in relationships. I always end up teaching the female partner how to speak vulnerably from her feelings, and I end up teaching the men how to be in masculine consciousness and leadership so that safety, sexual attraction, and tension can be reestablished. I just love witnessing the couples increase intimacy right in front of my eyes. You can watch me in action in IFS coaching, where I help the client find the root cause of her "don't trust men" belief. And it came from a seemingly innocent prank that happened during childhood. So the link to that individual session with this woman is in the cards. So even in conscious breakup conversations I've had with relationships that had to end, my emotional rawness was so heard by the men. They held conscious space on their masculine side through eye contact and non-judgment without the need to fix my emotions. And in these situations, it just felt so polarized in that masculine feminine energy that it created sexual tension that needed to be released. And the whole point of vulnerability psychology and its role in creating sexual attraction is that if there isn't a depth of rawness on either the man's or the woman's part, it is very difficult to evoke masculine feminine polarization that is needed for long-term sexual passion and aliveness. Without polarization, your relationship can get stale with just talking about surface level mundane stuff. And this lack of emotional excitement and depth can cause sex to be perfunctory or dry up altogether. So do you really want to have just perfunctory sex for the rest of your life? So I invite you to imagine feminine masculine polarization and emotional safety as you cuddle in bed and hold each other tightly. Imagine looking into the eyes of your partner with the energy that conveys, "I've got you. I want to hear the thoughts and feelings of every part of you. I won't judge you or be triggered." How safe and loved would you feel with that kind of holding space for each other? In Dr. Brown's Dare to Lead book, she asked over 200 audiences to give her one example of courage that did not require vulnerability. All she received were crickets. So, vulnerability is not weakness. It is the ultimate hallmark of strength because it requires courage, the courage to take a risk because your vulnerability can be rejected. If you do get into a deer in headlights a situation where your vulnerability is not received, you can say, "Thank you for rejecting my vulnerabilities in order to protect yourself." In dating, I've tested men to see if they could hold space for the cracked open heart of a feminine woman through vulnerability. I use voice notes so that they could hear my heart. Texting is not as effective as sharing your thoughts in person or through a voice message. And if they can't handle the deeply feminine side of my cracked open heart, they're not ready for a full rainbow spiritual goddess. Steve had been yearning for an evolved goddess, and we manifested each other through one of the dating apps. When you believe that there's someone out there who can match where you're at, the universe conspires and orchestrates the hows of bringing your match to you. You don't have to figure it out. So what has happened when you've had raw conversations and the other person held space? Let me know in the comments below on how good you felt and what happened in the conversation. So I have 3 questions to ask you. Number 1, do you yearn for the level of raw intimacy I described in my dating story? Number 2, do you have the courage to crack your heart open to share all parts of you, especially those tender, wounded parts? Number 3, what is holding you back from sharing your deepest feelings and thoughts, including the judgments about your partner? If you feel verbally constipated from sharing your emotions, it's the young child part of you that's stuck in the past that was told that vulnerability was weakness. Perhaps you were told boys don't cry, or girls don't show emotions because it's not safe for others to witness. So if you need one-on-one coaching to get unstuck from beliefs that are holding you back from attracting the relationship you want, click on the link below in the description box to see if a complimentary discovery call is the right fit and to see if working with me can help you in your journey. And if you want to do some self-study for your self-awareness journey, you can always sign up for the CLIMAX in Love course. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you got a lot out of it. I'll see you next time.